WDAY presents the best sports show in the region. Our season never stops. You're watching Sports Sunday.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dom Izzo. Welcome to a special edition of Sports Sunday. We've reached the fun time of the sports calendar as we're closing in on a new football season, and attention is focused as always on North Dakota State and what the Bison will do this upcoming year. This season begins with NDSU in a unique spot, trying to chase down South Dakota State. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll preview the 2023 season and look at the major storylines surrounding this year's team. Also coming up over the next 30 minutes on our Bison preview special, there's a new man leading the defense this year for the Bison, but he's no stranger to the Missouri Valley. You'll meet Jason Patrino and find out how he's trying to get the NDSU defense back to its feared status. NDSU has dipped into the transfer portal even more this offseason, landing some players they will need to immediately contribute. A handful are some familiar faces to football fans in the area. We'll introduce you to the new guys on this year's roster. And of NDSU's stalwarts on defense the last 3 years at linebacker is switching spots this fall. Cole Wisniewski dishes on moving to safety and the challenges facing him for this upcoming season. That and much more ahead over the next half hour. But we begin with the head football coach. Matt Entz is set to start his 5th year as the head coach of the Bison with 49 wins and 2 national championships in his back pocket. But he'd be the first to remind you that people only remember the last game you played, which was a 45-21 loss to South Dakota State in the national championship game in January. This year's Bison squad has plenty of questions, including an all-new-look secondary and new staff members. In part 1 of my yearly sit-down, we cover everything from expectations to his signal caller back for a 4th year under center. What do you get a sense about this 2023 Bison crew?
I'm excited about it. I think the thing that makes me the most excited is some of the unknown things that you're talking about. But Dom, I know this is a rhetorical question. What year have we ever gone into it where we haven't had questions, right? We've had new spots, we've had new players. We always talk about those things. I think there's some bodies in some places that may be unproven, but extremely talented. We need to continue to give them the necessary tools to be successful on Saturdays. Fall camp is going to be critical for some people. Guys who maybe have only been in a position for a spring, for 15 practices or a month, now have 8 weeks under their belt, and now we're going to have 30 more days before our first game, and that's where our job is to get them prepared to help us win.
You know full well the pressure that comes on being the defensive coordinator at NDSU. What have you shared with Jason Patrino about that, about stepping into this? He's coached other spots. He's coached other spots in the Valley. What have you told him about stepping into this job?
More isn't better. Understand what we've done in the past, understand why we've done things. Our kids are extremely intelligent. I think they have great football understanding, football IQ. Lean on that a little bit. Let's make sure we have answers for problems and issues we have in games versus instead of just having more defense. We need to be great at the fundamentals.
He's going to keep it. Now Herndon throws that one and hits Yonke, who gets out of the tackle. How about that play?
Did you think you were not good at fundamentals last season?
I don't think we're as good as we have been, Dom. I think getting off blocks, tackling, finishing at the ball carrier. I never once thought we didn't play hard. I just thought we lacked the finish part of the fundamentals. So we spent a lot of time this spring. We ramped up the urgency. You heard me talk numerous times. Probably more tackle reps this spring of 23, than I can remember the previous 9 springs I've been here.
This is a rarity for you. In your 5th year, you have now a 4-year starter at quarterback in Cam Miller. I visited with Cam right after spring ball, as I did you, and he said we got to wing it out. We did it during spring ball. We just got to wing it. Tell me that conversation about opening things up offensively.
Well, that conversation more took place with, of course, Cam was all on board. Right. My conversation was more with Coach Roll, Coach Hedberg, and our offensive staff. Guys, I don't want us to get away from being a line of scrimmage-based program. We need to get back to threatening every corner of the field, and I think we can. I thought we did a great job of moving that direction in spring, but now it's my job to continue to encourage that you know, sometimes you fall back into your habits, you know, because you get back into the season and you want to call what you know. Well, we need to make sure that we have out there, we need to call what is going to help us win games.
Now, next week, we'll focus on the new members of the Bison secondary and, of course, the season opener at the home of the Minnesota Vikings at U.S. Bank Stadium. No surprise that NDSU had plenty of representation on the Missouri Valley All-Conference teams, led by fullback Hunter Brosio, who's going to do double duty again at long snapper. Offensive lineman Jalen Sundell and defensive lineman Eli Mostart were all first-team selections. They were joined by running back Tamarick Williams, offensive lineman Brandon Westberg, and Jake Kubis, Will Mostart, Cole Wisniewski, and Jaden Price on the second team. Now, this is the entire first team from the Valley, led by SDSU's Mark Gronowski at quarterback and Isaiah Davis at running back. UND's Bo Belquist is a first-team selection once again at wide receiver. On defense, USD gets 2 linebackers onto the first team, along with Jackrabbit sensation Adam Bach mining the middle once again for SDSU. Now, the league itself was in an interesting spot heading into 2023. It's expanded to 12 teams, with Murray State joining this fall. There are 2 new head coaches. That includes Jimmy Rogers at SDSU taking over for the legend and John Stiglmeyer. The preseason poll looks like this, with SDSU up on top. NDSU is not a unanimous. South Dakota State did not receive 1 vote. That went to the Bison. Northern Iowa in 3rd, UND at 4th, SIU at 5, Youngstown State, Illinois State, Missouri State. One of those 3 teams could potentially bubble up and make a postseason run. Then you have South Dakota at 9, Indiana State at 10, Murray State, the newcomers, at 11, and Western Illinois rounding it out. The Leathernecks did not win a football game last season. Valley only got 3 teams into the postseason last year. I expect 4 to 5 will make it here in the fall of 2023. NDSU does not play Youngstown, Illinois State, or Indiana State this upcoming season. When our Bison preview show continues, there's a new man calling the defense. Meet Jason Patrino and the challenge he has to reconfigure the NDSU defense. We're back in 2.5 minutes.
Follow us on Twitter, WDAY News.
It's a new season for NDSU football, and with that comes a new defensive coordinator. I was able to sit down one-on-one with Jason Patrino to get to know him as a coach a little bit better.
So when you got that call from Coach Entz or whoever it may be saying, we want you to come here and we want you to be our defensive coordinator, what initially went through your head?
Coach Entz, it was weird. He was at Winona State. He left Winona State. I went to Winona State. I was there for a year, and then Coach Braun came in. So there's kind of always been that tie a little bit here, and like he and I talked, it's like, you know, it's a privilege and an honor. And as I'm being here and the historical things that happen from, you know, former players, former coaches, as you get inside of it, you're like, okay, wow, there's some things to it.
Spring ball, were you like, whoa, what did I get myself into?
It was just learning a new language. You know, it was like being here in the United States and then going over into France, and football terminology changes, and it was just kind of getting that, you know, understood, and then seeing the pieces move and how it was. And spring ball was a great time for me to learn, but also learn and watch all these players move around. And I think that's always been a strength of mine, is seeing bodies move, what their strengths are, what they're good at, and then trying to find ways to put them in those positions.
Besides terminology, where would you say that you faced the biggest challenge so far as a coach here at NDSU?
I've been at South Dakota, I've been a head coach at Rocky Mountain College, I've been at Southern Illinois. You know, so you look at the last 11 years, there's been a lot of change throughout, and it's using those experiences to come here and say, what did I learn and how I can get better? And I think the number one thing is you got to invest in the players. You got to invest in them, get to know them as people first, and then be able to coach them and prepare them.
As a defensive coordinator, what are you hoping the defense proves this season?
Be blessed with each opportunity. You know, you're only guaranteed 11, and it's going out week in and week out and challenging yourselves. Play to our abilities, know what the expectations are, you know, what's been done, what we represent, and what's to come. And so it's important for us to understand that we're carrying that legacy in this short period in this year, and how do we want to hand it off or pass it off.
Along with the new defensive coordinator, you'll see two other fresh faces on the Bison sidelines this year. Jeff Phelps is joining Nick Gazer on the defensive line as the new defensive tackles coach. Phelps is coming to NDSU with 23 years of coaching experience. Most recently, he spent 3 seasons at Mississippi State. And on the offensive side of the ball, Steve Crutchley is stepping in as the wide receivers coach. Crutchley has a long history with Bison coaches. From 2008 to 2012, he was the running backs coach under offensive coordinator and current NDSU quarterbacks Coach Randy Hedberg. But it doesn't stop there. He also coached with Matt Entz at Western Illinois for 2 years. Now that the three are back together, Entz and Hedberg are pushing Crutchley by putting him out of his comfort zone.
When you're trying to make sure that you're meeting the standard and holding the guys to the expectation, you're always holding yourself accountable, making sure that you're doing things the right way. I don't want to be the reason why we're not being successful. And so that challenge leaves me feeling a little uncomfortable until I feel like here's where we need to be. This is the standard and this is what we're doing this is the Bison football.
The last time Crutchley coached wide receivers was at Northern Illinois back in 2017 and 2018. Coming up after the break, Dom Izzo and Jeff Kolpak will break down the Bison 2023 schedule.
Welcome back, everybody, to our Bison preview show. My pleasure to welcome Jeff Kolpak from the Forum of Fargo-Moorhead back. 28th year, not that I'm counting, covering North Dakota State football. Happy New Year, buddy boy. Good to see you.
Are we sure it's not 82? It's 28.
Now. Season is setting up a unique one, Jeffrey. The Bison are not the favorite to win its own league or the national championship this season. Give me a question or questions you have about this 2023 team.
Oh, I think, first of all, there's a lot of questions with this team, and I think more questions now compared to maybe 2009, 2010, maybe a combo of those 2 years. There's just, you start with defense and the defensive backfield depleted, and you look at the stats. I mean, the 156 yards a game they gave up rushing last year, the most since 2009. The 20.2 points a game they gave up last year, the most since 2010. That's a long time. You talk about 28 years in a football program, that's a long time.
No doubt about it. We're going to take a look at the 2023 schedule, game by game. WDAY will be broadcasting 10 of the 11 regular season games this season. The Missouri State game in Springfield will be exclusive on ESPN Plus as the Valley game of the week. So here's the schedule, Jeffrey. It begins with Eastern Washington at US Bank Stadium. The home opener is with Maine. There's a neat story behind that Maine was supposed to come here actually in 2001. The September 11th terrorist attacks canceled that game. Then Central Arkansas is the last non-conference game. Anything stand out there of the 3 non-conference games to you?
Well, certainly off the bat, you look at Eastern Washington and the perennial passing attack that the Eagles can bring. And you talk about the depleted backfield of NDSU.
Yeah.
Huge test off the bat for the new cornerbacks. You're going to have new safeties. You're going to have a converted linebacker in Cole Wisniewski to safety. I mean, so you want to talk about a test right away.
Right out of the chute.
They found it.
A bye week, and then it's South Dakota at homecoming to start the conference. Bob Nielsen back after maybe some interesting decision there. I think some of us, myself hand raised, that I didn't know he would come back. Then the first real road game at Missouri State, and then I'll circle October 14th at UND. That is going to be a really interesting football game.
Well, what are you getting at there? That maybe for the first time?
Maybe. We'll see. They came a heck of a close 2 years ago up there.
And it's tough to play at the Allaire Center, as we all know. I know NDSU is an indoor football team, as is South Dakota, but you go to somebody else's dome, it's just a little different environment. And, you know, maybe the Hawks are due. I mean, you can't win every year. I mean, at some point, they're going to break through.
And then, Jeff, it's Murderers Row. Craig Bull always used to tell me, you remember November. Look at this in November. At South Dakota State, Southern Illinois at home, and at Northern Iowa. That is a tough end of the season here.
And I think they're going to end with 2 of the 3 best quarterbacks in the Missouri Valley, in Mark Gronowski at South Dakota State and then Theo Day at Northern Iowa.
Throw in Nick Baker there as well with SIU. What do we think here, overview?
Oh, well, if you're talking a record? 9-2.
That's what I'm looking at, too.
9-2. I think that's going to be a tough game at South Dakota State. And with a young defense, you never know. There could be a stub-a-toe game here somewhere. Jeff
will be part of our coverage all season long here on WDAY. When our Bison preview special returns, one of NDSU's defensive standouts is switching spots. Why Cole Wisniewski is moving to safety. We're back on our Bison preview show right after this.
You're watching the news leader, WDAY.
A player we've been eyeing all offseason is Cole Wisniewski. Throughout the past 3 years, we've seen him as a linebacker, but as he's about to begin his senior year, Wisniewski is making the switch to safety.
I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a little bit different.
Heading into 2023, you'll see Cole Wisniewski on the defensive side of the ball for NDSU.
Including Wisniewski on the stop.
But instead of leading the linebacker room, the senior is now leading the safeties.
Kind of funny. I have a really good holistic view of the defense, and there might be times where I'm at safety, I'm right before the play. Not so much now, but definitely during spring ball where I'd be lined up and I'd be like, oh shoot, what's my assignment? And then I look around me, I'm like, all right, he's got this, he's got this, he's got this, I must be here. So it's kind of, you figure it out by subtraction instead of just knowing what you're doing.
Conversations began last season with linebackers coach Grant Olson.
Like we were both, it stunk to be moved out of his room because we do have such a great relationship. What's best for me is best for the group, what's best for the group is best for me. And if the coaches felt like it was the best thing for me to move, they didn't have to sell me on it at all.
The skills that Wisniewski developed at linebacker are helping with the transition to the secondary.
Moving my eyes throughout the play has really helped me already in my transition. And then obviously I have all the in-box skills crafted. So those are super beneficial when I'm coming down from depth.
Now he's getting the opportunity to share the field with his friends.
2 years, I'm going in, he's coming out, or he's coming out, I'm going out, and then all of a sudden I turn around, I see 31 back there. It's different, but man, it's fun. It's fun being able to communicate with him on the field, and I think we have very similar playing styles, and I think we complement each other in our game, and so I'm really excited for that.
Although it's a brand new position, the veteran is preparing for the season just like normal.
I think it'd be the same thing if I was playing linebacker, to be honest. It's just, what are the changes that we've brought to this defense? What is Patrino bringing into this defense and learning it, and just really mastering it, correcting all the little mistakes that you're making so that by the time September 2nd comes, we're ready to go full force.
Now former NDSU All-American and our Cutler analyst for the year, Kyle Manuel, joins me in studio. Kyle, you're a defensive guy. How big is this switch from linebacker to safety for Cole?
Well, I think it's interesting, right? Because I think I could make the argument that he was possibly the best linebacker a year ago. Yeah. Now, I know he was injured. I think it's going to be less than we think, actually. You do a lot of the same things, and I think NDSU is going to use him a lot like a linebacker. He's going to be a strong safety. He's going to roll down in the box. He's going to be involved in run fits. He's going to have to do a lot of the things he probably did as an outside linebacker. Now it's just a different perspective. I'm interested in seeing, you know, if you're playing cover two, covering a deep half, things that he'd never done. There's going to be a learning curve, but I don't think they would have done this because of how good of a linebacker he was if they didn't feel like he could do it.
Right, and he's a smart guy. We've seen that. But another smart guy and another newer face that we're going to see is Sam Young. He has been waiting in the wings, Kyle. Now he's finally getting his shot.
I'm excited to see him as well. You know, and I think Cole Wisniewski actually was quoted saying he's one of the smartest guys on the team. They're both from Wisconsin. I think they've been roommates. So those two as a tandem, you know, we think of safety so much as, you know, two guys playing the position together. Well, it's two guys that know each other very well. They're going to communicate well. And I'm excited for him to get this opportunity. As you mentioned, he's been on the field a ton. He's been around this program. And now he's the guy. And this is a position where NDSU's been so stable for so long. Yes, yeah. And I think back to 2019 when Michael Tutsi was coming in, there was question marks around him. Well, we saw what he did, you know, for 4 or 5 years. I think, you know, this obviously won't be here as long for Sam Young, but this could be, you know, the next great Bison safety.
I was talking with Coach Patrino, and he said that Sam Young helped coach him up on the defense when he first got here. So 2 smart guys in the back. I think the Bison will be in safe hands. Another question that we have this season comes with the linebackers. I know we had lots of questions about them last year. We saw them rotate at the middle linebacker position. Do we think that we'll see that again?
You know, it's a great question. I think we will. And you know, I was going through and you look at all the different names that could play here, and there's like 6 or 7. There's guys that have been on the field before. There's guys that they're excited about. There's guys like Marcus Goley who transfers in from Morehead State. You know, does he find a role? But you think about the middle linebacker position with Nick Kubitz and Luke Wirtz, and they were rotating. Coach Henson said, you know, we want to get them on the field at the same time. So is that a position change or is it not? I mean, there's a lot of guys there that I think can play, and I think that again speaks to why Cole Wisniewski moved, is because they want to find the best way to get the best 11 on the field. So I think there's a lot of talent in that group, but this is the question you and I still can't answer, is what does that look like? Is it still a rotation? Is it not? Who are going to be the starters? It's something to keep your eye on, especially early in the season. We've been hearing so much about Logan Kopp. What are your expectations for one of the younger guys in that group this season? Yeah, he really flashed a year ago, and I mean, if you asked me to predict, I think he will be a starting outside linebacker. linebacker. I wouldn't be surprised if he could play middle as well, but I think they feel a little more solidified there. I think he'll be on the field a lot. I like what I saw from him a year ago, and now it's just, can you continue to take that next step? But I would look for, Logan to possibly be a starter going into week 1.
I'm right there with you. It'll be interesting to see who's starting come September 2nd. Well, Kyle, thanks so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
We're looking forward to working with you again this season. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show and take a look at what's coming up next week.